Hey guys, welcome to our third edition of Byte Sized Chats with Wrappli, if I can say that correctly. So today we've got our amazing VP and co-founder Fee.
Hey.
Fee, would you want to give us a couple of intro points about yourself and what you do at Wrappli?
Yeah, well, I have a background in ad sales and management, big passion for growing teams and working with people. I spent about 10 years working in print, online and radio sales in the advertising industry. And at Wrappli, I do many things. I wear lots of hats, as most co-founders do. I predominantly look after the sales department with overviews on social media marketing, and I do all the bookkeeping and financing and spend a lot of time having heated debates with my wonderful co-founder Suraj.
That's fantastic. Obviously we didn't mention Fee's also a mum, and you know,
Yes.
and that brings me to my next question. Is like, how do you balance being a mum? You know,
I don't.
And you know, because obviously being a co-founder it's a lot of pressure, and like there's so many things that go on, and you know, every day there's different issues that come up randomly.
Yeah.
And that, and you know, you've got two beautiful daughters, and how do you manage that whole thing?
This is going to sound like a cop-out, but I just get on with it. I mean, the beauty of having your own business is that you have the flexibility. If a kid is sick and whatever, you're not reporting to anyone, and you have the flexibility to come in late after a doctor's appointment or whatever it is. But that brings me to the next point. You know, in starting a business and running a business, there is no time slot that you're working in.
Right.
So, you know, if I have to take half a day off to be with my kids, I work most nights. And I'm up half the night thinking about it anyway. So the balance actually isn't too bad, especially because I've got good kids and great help with grandparents. That's a massive help. I don't know how I would do it without that.
Oh, awesome. I'm sure, you know, along the journey that you would have had to make a few sacrifices, you know.
Yeah.
Either, you know, whether it's your kids spending time with your husband and things like that.
Yeah.
So could you give us an example of that? Like just giving up on something to accomplish something else?
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with startups and entrepreneurs, it's like this amazing and stupid ingrained thing in us where there's pretty much nothing that will get in the way of what we want to do.
Right.
And that's how I feel about Wrappli. So when we were starting, Suraj and I had been working on Wrappli for about a year with you, and we started going through the capital raising round, our first round, and I was pregnant with my second at the time. And I pretty much had to realize when I made the decision to have a second kid that my poor second child would not get the attention that my first got. I mean, after I had her, I was in the hospital still, and I had like meetings with Suraj, and we were on the phone for hours, and we were working stuff out, and there was no real time off. So
Right.
I had to sacrifice what people in corporate jobs tend to be able to have maternity leave and take some time off to spend with their kids.
Yeah.
I haven't had that.
Right.
And that's probably been the hardest part. But there's a reason I'm doing it, and hopefully it'll benefit my kids in the long run. So
Right.
it's a risk-reward sort of thing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, for our viewers, I guess they would want to know what drives you daily, like, because you know it's again
No pun intended with the Wrappli thing, right? Yeah. What drives me? I love doing something different every day. I get very bored doing the same thing, tackling the same problems over and over again. And I also got very sick of being in a corporate environment where unless you were at a certain level, you just didn't get heard, no matter how good your idea was, no matter how much input you could give, because you were out there day in, day out, busting your butt.
Yes.
So what drives me is I want to be able to create awesome businesses, and I love tech, so that's why I love Wrappli as well. I want to be able to create environments that foster collaboration and allow people at a very young age or at whatever stage they're at to come into the environment and feel like that they can contribute at a larger level than they would be able to if they just worked in a big corporate.
Right.
That's
Okay.
what drives me.
That's awesome. You gave the nervous laugh like Suraj did. Are you nervous?
Suraj and I have a good nervous laugh, yeah.
Obviously the culture has changed quite a bit, even in corporates and obviously startups and stuff.
Yeah.
around how women were represented.
Yeah.
So since when you started, what do you think are the main changes that are different between then and now?
I guess when I started my career, I never anticipated that I would sit on a board.
Right.
To be honest, when I started my career, I was 18. I never put much thought into women's rights, or it never really crossed my mind that I would be seen as inferior.
Right.
I never thought of it. And I've been very fortunate to not really, only a few times been in a position where someone has made me feel inferior for being a woman.
Right.
But I think things are really changing, and I don't mean it in the way that because people feel like they have to make a change, but I feel like the more opportunities women are given to prove their worth in organizations, and I'm talking more for the inherent skills that I think come with male female traits.
Right.
And I do think there's different skills.
Yep.
And I think there's different perceptions around those skills, and I think that the more women are given roles that have greater responsibility, the more those traits are going to be respected for their role within an organization. You know, there are so many cases where a strong man who's emotional and he gets aggressive or frustrated, that's perceived as that's great strength and great passion. And if a woman gets emotional or angry in the same role, that's perceived as weakness. And so I think that there's a lot of changes that still need to happen. I think we're far off, but I feel very fortunate. I sit on 2 boards already, and I plan to sit on many more and create many businesses in my life, and I'm hoping that I can have some impact for the women who work with me and people in general, and also the perception.
Right. What's one tip that you'd give to this is a bit of a segue, to all our budding entrepreneurs or young folk who want to do their own thing? I
would say, I'm going to give 2 tips.
I
would say, I don't follow instructions clearly. I would say that
that's tip 1.
Yeah, tip 1, follow instructions. I would say that perseverance is really important, and finding someone that you can, usually it's not someone starting a business by themselves. There's more often than not a team or a co-founder. And I would say find someone who you can just lose your shit at, essentially, and walk away with a huge amount of respect, and have someone that you can bounce these tough ideas off. Because if you don't have someone to challenge, and if you don't have someone to argue with about the important things, great ideas are never going to develop. It's like Ray Dalio, the CEO of Bridgewater.
Yes.
I was listening to a podcast with him on Freakonomics, and he talks about the importance of debates and the importance of arguments, and how often people are so scared about confrontation, but really being scared of confrontation just limits you. So my big tip is find someone that you can have confrontations with, because that leads to great ideas.
Right.
And my second tip is find a mentor. Find a mentor who's been through this, who has started businesses, who's failed at businesses, who can help guide you through all the learnings that you're going to get starting a business, because it's fucking hard. It's really hard. So those 2 things I'd say.
Okay. What do you do when things get really hard?
Cry.
How do you manage with like a lot of stress?
I don't know. I've never been the type of person. I will often just have a cry, by the way, in private. I've never been the type of person that gets too worried about stress. Like, it doesn't keep me up at night too much. I'm very much a task-oriented person, so I have my list and I like ticking stuff off that list. And when it gets really stressful, I'm a big fan of mindfulness. I really try breathe it out a bit and just take a step back and figure out what the priorities are. I think it's very easy when you're stressed to lose track of what the most important task in front of you is. Doesn't always work, but I try.
That's great. You spoke about having a mentor. Who was your mentor?
Who is my mentor?
Who is your mentor?
My father-in-law, Alan.
Yes.
I met Alan when I was 15, when I started dating his son. And he has had over 30 years experience in VC and startups. He's lived in Silicon Valley. And he's just a very down-to-earth guy. It's so easy to talk to him. And he's very quick to say if I've stepped out of line or if I'm wrong, which I think is really important. It doesn't happen often, but I am wrong occasionally. And he just is a fantastic mentor because he lets me come to my own decisions. He helps guide me in my business decisions. And he's just very easy to talk to about the difficult things that you go through when you have your own business.
Right. I guess final question for you would be, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Obviously you mentioned you want to be on multiple boards.
So busier.
Yes.
Where do I see myself in 5 years? I hope that in 5 years Wrappli is at a self-sustaining level where we have a huge and regular driver community. We've made a dent in the out-of-home industry and we're, recognised as one of the big players. And I see myself still having an involvement in that. In 5 years, gosh, I don't know. I haven't even thought about it. Maybe working on a new startup at some stage. I don't know. Depends how good Wrappli gets.
We'll end our discussion with that. Thanks for your time, Fee. It's been a pleasure.
You.
And
see you guys.